Hi, BGTTI here. This video is a step-by-step guide on how to install PollN for local development. I'll leave the links to both the GitHub project and the PollN website in the description below. Let's jump right in. There are three ways you can do it. A local setup with MySQL installed on your machine, a local setup using MySQL in Docker, or running the entire app inside Docker containers. I'll cover all three options in this video, starting with the first, running PollN locally with MySQL installed. We'll be following the instructions from the README file in the main branch. Clicking on Installation in the table of contents will take us straight to the installation section. We're going to choose Local Setup. First, we'll clone the repository. If you'd like to contribute to PollN, it's a good idea to fork the repository first, then clone your fork instead. You can see the project folder has been successfully created. Next, let's cd into the project directory and create a virtual environment. Once the virtual environment is created, we'll go ahead and activate it. A quick tip if you're on Windows and using VS Code. Make sure VS Code is selecting the correct Python interpreter. It can sometimes get confused when you have multiple environments. Now we can go ahead and install the requirements. If you run into any issues during this step, it's most likely related to the MySQL connector. You may need to install a version that works best for your system. I have a note about it in the documentation. Once the installation is complete, you might see a message suggesting you upgrade pip. It's not relevant and I'll ignore it for now. I'll explain later how to run the app's database using Docker, but for now, I'll show you how to run it locally, assuming you have already installed MySQL. In MySQL Workbench, you should see the name of your local instance along with the user and the port it's using. Make sure that MySQL is up and running and that there's an established connection. I'll open the terminal with administrator permissions and run net start with the name of my local instance. Don't forget to stop it once you're done working. Once the database is running, we're ready to move on. Next, we'll create a .env file in the project's root directory. We can simply copy the contents from the .env.example file, which you'll also find in the root of the project. After copying, make sure to update your MySQL user and password in the .env to match the credentials you set up for your local MySQL instance. Now we will create a database by running python mydb.py. After that, we'll make the migrations to set up the database schema. Once that's done, you'll be able to see the new tables in MySQL Workbench. We've reached the final step. Let's create a super user by following the instructions in the terminal. Once that's done, we can then start the server. And that's it. The server is now up and running on port 8000. You can open your browser and check it out. Instead of running MySQL locally, we can also run it using Docker. Before we get started, If you had MySQL running locally, make sure to stop it. To do that, open a terminal as an administrator and run net stop and the name of your local instance. Also, make sure that Docker is installed and running on your machine. As before, we'll follow the instructions in the README file. We've already cloned the repository, started the virtual environment, and installed the dependencies. Now, let's make sure our .env file is set up correctly for Docker. Next, we'll create the Docker Compose YAML file and build the image. Once that's done, we can then see that our image has been created and is running inside Docker Desktop. Neat! This means our database is set up and running. So we can ignore the mydb.py script this time. There is no need to manually create the database again. Now, we can make the migrations to set up our tables. Then, we'll create the Django superuser. And finally, run the server. That's it. Our PollN local instance is now running on port 8000 again. Now, let's move on to running PollN completely inside Docker containers. Up to this point, we've been working from the main branch. To run PollN fully on Docker, we'll need to switch branches. We'll be using the main Dockerized branch instead. This branch also comes with its own README file containing instructions, and we'll be following along with that. Since we've already forked and cloned this repository, all you need to do now is switch branches by running git checkout main Dockerized. I'll assume you already have Docker installed, and just a quick reminder, make sure Docker is running on your machine before we move on. You notice there is a file named .env.docker.example in the project root. Go ahead and copy its contents into a new .env file. The Docker Compose.yaml, Docker file, and entry point scripts are already included in the root folder of the project in this branch. I have a quick tip for Windows users. If you're using VS Code, make sure that entrypoint.sh has the correct line ending format. If you see CRLF at the bottom right corner of your VS Code window, click on it and change it to LF, then save the file. This helps avoid potential issues when running the container. Now let's build the Docker images. This step may take a few minutes, so be patient. Once it's done, you'll be able to see the containers running in Docker Desktop. PollN_MySQL is the database, and PollN_web is the containerized application. After the containers are up and running, you want to create a Django superuser inside the container. To do this, open a new terminal and run the command that's shown on the screen. I'll be skipping this step here in the video since it's exactly the same process we followed earlier. Once your superuser is created, you can open your browser, go to localhost, and you'll see that PollN is running locally on port 8000 again. If you run into any issues while building the Docker image, don't worry. I've already uploaded a pre-built image to Docker Hub. You'll find a link to it in the README file. You can simply pull the image from Docker Hub and get up and running even faster. Before we wrap up, it's important to test the app. I'll make a quick note about testing the QR code, and then we'll take a look at the test scripts. When you're testing your local instance, it should go without saying, but it's much easier to simulate answering a poll by simply copying and pasting the poll code on the home page or using the poll's link. Scanning the QR code with your phone likely won't work if you're running on localhost, unless you specifically configure your phone to access your local machine's network, which can be a bit tricky. So for local development, just using the poll link or entering the code manually is the easiest way. Each Django app in the project comes with a test.py file. You can run all the tests by simply using the command python manage.py test. If you make any changes to any routes or if you create new features, don't forget to update the existing tests or write new ones to cover your changes. Keeping your test up to date is a great way to ensure everything keeps working smoothly as the project grows. Here's a quick overview of the project's branches. The main branch contains the up-to-date stable code. The main Dockerized branch contains the same code from main, but it's ready to run inside Docker containers. The production branch is what's currently deployed. It's kept in sync with main. The version 1 branch contains the original code, which I wrote about 2 years ago for a course. Since then, the source code has been significantly updated. Any other branches you might see are either old versions of the project or development branches that could eventually be merged into main when they are ready. To make sure you're working with the latest version, always use the main branch. PollN is open source and you're more than welcome to contribute. If you're interested, you'll find guidelines in the README file on how to get started. And that's it. I hope this video was helpful. If you find any bugs or issues, please don't hesitate to report them. It really helps improve the project. Wishing you happy coding and thanks for watching.